Hello everyone. In the previous class, we saw the first two varieties of Pada-pūrvārtha-vakrata, namely rūḍhi-vaicitrya-vakratā and Paryāya-vakratā. In this class, we are going to familiarize ourselves with the other two varieties of Pada-pūrvārtha-vakrata, namely upacāravakratā, viśeṣaṇa and saṃvṛti-vakratā. First, let's take a look at upacāravakratā. In this form of Vakrokti, the two dissimilar things are put together using a metaphorical usage. Kundaka says that in this form of Vakrokti, even when the two objects are far apart from each other, a common attribute, however slight, is metaphorically superimposed in order to indicate that the resemblance is very close. In this context, the expression far apart from each other does not signify distance in terms of time or space, but the difference in terms of their nature or ontology. This difference can be of various kinds. For example, the difference between a concrete object and an abstract object, or the difference between a sentient entity and a non-sentient entity, or the difference between a solid object and a liquid. In this form of Vakrokti, two objects having different characters are brought together with the help of a metaphorical usage. The following is an example of upacāravakratā that Kundaka cites in Vakrokti Jivita. When on the king's highway, all sight is blocked by darkness, so dense that has to be pierced by a needle. Wantons you will see hurrying at night to the abodes of their lovers. Do show them their way by the flash of your lightning, as bright as the gold streak on the touchstone. Don't you by any chance get noisy by your thunder's pouring rain, because they are very timid indeed. In this example, taken from Meghaduta, the darkness, which is an abstract entity, is first conceived of as a concrete entity. The author says that the darkness is so dense. This is a quality that we find only in a concrete entity. In other words, only a concrete entity can become thick. Here the word dense is metaphorically used to refer to the intensity of the darkness. Then the author says that it needs to be pierced by a needle. Again, only a concrete thing can be pierced. It is impossible to pierce an abstract thing like darkness. So, in this context, the word pierce is metaphorically used to mean the idea to remove. We know that darkness is an abstract entity, but it is presented in this context as a concrete entity. Here, the distance between the qualities of the abstract and the concrete are bridged over by a metaphorical usage. Here goes one more example in this respect. Though the sky is filled with drunken clouds and the woods with Arjunas thrashing in the downpour, these black nights too, when the moon has lost its pride, carry off my heart. According to Kundaka, this Prakrit verse, which describes a monsoon night, incorporates Vakrata in two words, namely drunken or matta and pride or ahankara. The word drunken or matta means a state of inebriation due to the use of some intoxicant. Since the condition of inebriation is applicable only to a sentient entity, the conventional meaning of the word drunken or matta is impossible in this context, because a cloud, being a non-sentient thing, cannot get intoxicated. So the word drunken gets extended to mean one of the characteristics associated with a drunkard, which is the act of wandering around aimlessly. Thus, the word drunken undergoes an incorporeal transformation in this context. That is, the physicality of the signifier does not change, but it takes on a new signification which is not conventionally associated with it. The same process happens in the case of the signifier pride or ahankara. The word pride literally means a feeling of pleasure or satisfaction that you get when you or people who are connected with you have done something well or on something that other people admire or are jealous of. This is a quality typical of a sentient creature, especially a human being. But this quality is attributed to the moon, which is a non-sentient thing. Hence, the literal meaning of the term pride or ahankara gets blocked, and then the signifier deterritorializes its conventional semantic ambit to incorporate another meaning, that is charm, which is a positive quality which people can pride on. So, the sentence means that the moon has lost its charm completely. After describing this variety, Kundaka goes on to describe another variety of Pada-pūrvārtha-vakrata, which is called viśeṣaṇa vakrata. Viśeṣaṇa vakrata. What is a viśeṣaṇa vakrata? Viśeṣaṇa vakrata is the kind of vakrata that is achieved by the excellence of the epithet that is added to a verb or a noun. This variety is of two kinds, namely that which reveals the special grace of natural objects or actions described, and that which endows a new shade of beauty to even recognized figures of speech. Let's take a look at the first variety, that is the epithet which reveals the special grace of natural objects or actions. The following example will explain the first variety. Flooded by moonlight, white and cool, and lovely in the raining silence for long, the quarters of the sky became generators of either quietude or love even in the heart. In this line, expressions like flooded by moonlight, white and cool, lovely in the raining silence, etc. are epithets used to describe the quarters of the sky. Here, these epithets enhance the beauty of a natural object, which is the sky. Here goes one more example for this variety, where a verb is decorated with an epithet. With eyes closed, Vinida Vimalaksha, the lordly elephant recalled all memories of free sports and mighty pleasures in the forest. In this line, taken from Shishupala Vatha, the expression Vinida Vimalaksha, meaning with eyes closed, adds beauty to the verb to recall. The following is an example of the second variety of viśeṣaṇa-vakrata, which adds beauty to a recognized figure of speech, which puts to shame even the beauty of the moon. Finally, Kundaka concludes his discussion on this variety by saying the following words. To infuse an extraordinary charm into literary relish, natural objects and actions as well as figures of speech, the significant epithet should be properly utilized by the poet. The next variety of Pada-pūrvārtha-vakrata that we are going to see is saṃvṛti-vakrata. Saṃvṛti-vakrata is the use of pronouns to hide the actual object that is being described. According to Kundaka, there are 6 kinds of saṃvṛti-vakratas. Kundaka says, in order to achieve the excellence of expression, when the subject of description is screened by the use of pronouns and so on, we have what is designated as saṃvṛti-vakrata. Among these 6 varieties, the first variety is employed when the poet feels that the infinite speciality of the object might get lost if he directly states what he wants to present. To prevent such an eventuality, he will cover it up with a pronoun which is general in significance. The following is an example of this variety of saṃvṛti-vakrata. Seeing his father intent on marriage, he performed just a minor task indeed, which made Cupid himself to rest his cheek on the tip of his flower bow, immersed in thought. In this example, the pronoun he is used to cover the person Bhishma. Kundaka explains the saṃvṛti-vakrata found in this line in the following words. In this example, it was certainly possible for the poet to state that Shantanu's son Bhishma displayed incredible self-restraint in forswearing all sensual allurements because of his extraordinary magnanimity, his devout good behavior, and boundless regard for elders. But the poet has avoided this straightforward statement. The poet allowed it to be concealed by a pronoun he with general significance. Now, let's take a look at the second variety. This variety is used when the speaker or the poet feels that the phenomenon that he is describing has reached the pinnacle of the function that it is performing, and now it is inexplicable or beyond words. The following example will explicate this variety further. O Krishna, Radha cried that way. Hearing her cry, it seemed that no women would ever think of marriage in 100 births. This line talks about the grief of Radha, who was pining for Krishna, who went to Dwaraka. Here, the intensity of Radha's weeping cannot be expressed through words. So, the poet fears that if he tries to recreate this feeling through words, he will not be able to achieve it. So, he concealed it by using the word that way, so that the readers can imagine. But then in the next line, he reveals it for the readers. Kundaka notes, here, the way in which she sang is concealed by the pronoun that way. And at the same time, the concealed idea is revealed by another clause which wins the heart of the critics with taste. Now, the next variety of saṃvṛti-vakrata under Pada-pūrvārtha-vakrata. In this form of variety, an exceedingly tender subject does not permit of any elaborate description of its actions. Therefore, a concealment is employed. The following is an example of this variety. Seeing the marks of endearment on her person in the mirror, and at the same time catching sight of her lover sitting beside her, what reactions did Parvati not show out of bashfulness? This verse describes the bashfulness of Parvati. Since the emotion is very tender, the poet does not want to describe her actions in detail. So, he conceals the details of her action using the expression, what reactions did Parvati not show? Here, the exact Sanskrit expression which does the function of concealment is kani kani. Now, the fourth variety of saṃvṛti-vakrata. This variety is employed when the speaker feels that a particular experience cannot be explained, but it has to be experienced alone. Kundaka says, this particular variety is employed in order to indicate that it is something that can be merely experienced within oneself and is impossible of verbal description. The following is an example of this variety. Those sweet expressions still suggest something in my heart. Here, the expressions that the speaker is suggesting need to be essentially experienced and enjoyed. They cannot be explained in words. So, the poet conceals the exact nature of the expressions using the pronoun those. Now, the fifth variety of saṃvṛti-vakrata. This variety is employed when the concealment suggests the speaker's inability to describe verbally what has been experienced by another person. The following example will elucidate this variety further. Seeing this, the Cupid thought something in meditation. Here, the speaker does not know what the Cupid had actually thought in meditation. The speaker is not in a position to understand and describe what Cupid had thought about. Hence, the poet had used the word something, thereby concealing what Cupid had exactly thought. Now, the last variety in this section. In this variety, the speaker conceals something that can potentially turn out to be a slander or profanity. The following example will illustrate it further. Stop him, O maid, this urchin is talking something. His upper lip is throbbing already. He is not only someone who slanders the great, he is also the one who is very much capable of turning whoever listens to him into a sinner. In this example, the thing that the urchin is talking about is a slander, but the slander is concealed by the word something. Here, by using the word something or kimapi, the poet is covering the slander. Here goes one more example that Kundaka cites. This one, a false custodian of pledges, is out to do something, oh dear. Here also, the poet is sure that the action that is going to be performed will be a grave sin, but he does not want to talk about it. Therefore, the details of the specificities of the action are concealed by the word something. Kundaka winds up this discussion by saying that there is one more variety of saṃvṛti-vakrata where the concealment can happen with the help of an affix that has to be placed in the middle of the sentence. Kundaka says, the affix in the middle of a word often adds to the beauty of decorum in the subject by virtue of its own excellence. This may be treated as another type of poetic beauty. Kundaka further notes, some affixes like krit occurring in the middle of the words are seen enhancing the unique beauty of poetic utterance in the passage. They serve to increase the beauty of decorum in respect of the subject described. Now, let's wrap up our discussion for the time being. We saw three kinds of vakratas in this class, namely upacāravakratā, viśeṣaṇa-vakratā and saṃvṛti-vakratā. In upacāravakratā, two dissimilar things are put together using a metaphorical usage. Viśeṣaṇa-vakratā is the kind of vakratā that is achieved by the excellence of the epithet that is added to a verb or a noun. Saṃvṛti-vakratā is the use of pronouns to hide the actual object that is being described. According to Kundaka, there are 6 kinds of saṃvṛti-vakratas. Among these 6 varieties, the first variety is employed when the poet feels that the infinite speciality of the object might get lost if he directly states what he wants to present. To prevent such an eventuality, he will cover it up with a pronoun which is general in significance. In the second variety, the speaker or the poet feels that the phenomenon that he is describing has reached the pinnacle of the function that it is performing, and now it is inexplicable or beyond words. So, he uses the pronoun etc. to talk about it. In the third variety, an exceedingly tender subject does not permit of any elaborate description of its actions. Therefore, a concealment is employed. In the fourth variety of saṃvṛti-vakratā, the concealment is employed since the speaker feels that a particular experience cannot be explained, but it needs to be experienced alone. Now, the fifth variety of saṃvṛti-vakratā. This variety is employed when the concealment suggests the speaker's inability to describe verbally what has been experienced by another person. Now, the last variety in this section. In this variety, the speaker conceals something that can potentially turn out to be a slander or profanity with the help of a pronoun etc. I hope you have understood all the major lessons that we discussed in this class. Thank you.